Oh, okay, great. Thank you. So now we're recording, and I suppose I should give my introduction again. No, you got it. I'm Dr. Michelle Peticolas, former president of Heart to Heart Toastmasters. And I'm here teaching you instead of taking the VPE, which I'm taking on for the first time. However, I will probably come back for a makeup training to get that. I want to start out by asking you, and I hope you will participate with me in this. How many of you are new presidents, first time ever presidents? Please raise your hands. Either, okay.
So Michelle,
Yes.
even though I didn't have an introduction for you, I do have a preamble that I'm supposed to read to the group. May I do that?
Okay, great. Yeah, while you're doing the preamble, go ahead and keep on raising your hands so I can get an idea of how many of you are new presidents.
Okay, here we go. Please keep your videos turned on unless you hear otherwise by the trainer. If you're not focused on the training or doing something distracting, you'll be asked to turn your video off. You can rename yourselves with your name, club, and officer role. I will post the attendance form in the chat a couple of times during the meeting. You only need to fill it out once, but it must be completed before you leave this meeting room. You and your club will not get a credit for having an officer trained unless this is filled out. Everyone, please turn your mics off and keep them off unless you are asked to turn it on by the trainer. If you leave your mic on and it becomes distracting, I will ask you to turn it off. Let's see, the chat will be open to share tips about being president. You may also use the raised hand reaction buttons to get our attention. This meeting is being recorded and I'll remain in the meeting. Please place a message in the chat if you need my attention. When the 5-minute warning is given, check and make sure that you have completed the attendance form, and another gallery view snapshot may also be taken. At the end of the session, I will add to the chat the link to get you back into the main room. Thank you for attending TLI, and back to you, Michelle.
Well, thank you, Sally. That is all very important information. And please, if you missed some of it, post in the chat and ask your questions. That's what Sally's here for. We have a number of brand new presidents. Congratulations on stepping up and helping your club to move forward. My own story, I joined Heart to Heart Toastmasters wanting to become a better speaker. I think that's one of the reasons most of us join Toastmasters. And I had no ideas about leadership. It was not on my radar. It was not one of the things that I was looking towards doing. In fact, my idea of leadership were those bigger than life leaders like Martin Luther King, JFK, Gandhi, and they were all murdered. So it wasn't what I really wanted. However, 6 months later, I became president of Heart to Heart Toastmasters because this club, although it had been President's Distinguished, was struggling. It did not have enough people to really fill the officer roles. I think that's the biggest problem a club has, and where they sink down is when they don't have enough officers to run their meeting, enough officers to run their club, and enough people to run the meeting. So one of the things, since most of you are experienced presidents, I'm going to open up the conversation to issues that you may be having as presidents, because you are very, very important to your club. And for those of you who are new, you are on an exciting journey. For me, it transformed my work and my life, stepping up into a leadership position, because as I said, it was never on my radar. And in stepping up as Heart to Heart president, I found leadership skills I didn't even know I had, such as how to enroll people, such as how to set boundaries or limits, how to excite and inspire people, how to get a bunch of volunteers to volunteer. These are some of the many things that I learned. Of course, you just heard an amazing keynote speaker talk about what he got out of being in Toastmasters and stepping up into a leadership role. But you are on an exciting journey. And I really want you to take advantage of this training right now to learn what you need to learn for you to be effective. When I became the president, the former president was standing up there pleading that somebody would take over because he had been president for 2 years and he had basically saved us a dying club. And I thought, well, you know, this is a volunteer organization. We all have to step up at some point and do our share. So why not now? Well, I'm not that busy. This is not a good reason for becoming a leader, but it got me over the hump. So I asked him about the leadership role because it seemed pretty daunting. And this was James Jeffley, which maybe some of you even know, an amazing speaker who was in the international speech competition, a 2-time finalist. He said to me, "Oh, President, it's the easiest role because you delegate everything." Well, that only works if you have somebody to delegate, which I didn't. So I spent most of my first year enrolling other members into the club. I spent the first year probably taking on every other role except VP membership in that year, because most of our officers were officers in name only. Have you ever run into that, where you are so desperate to fill all the officer roles that you get people who never show up? They never do their job. And so you, as president, the buck stops here. You had to take on their role. What I want you to learn here is not only your president's role, and of course, most of you know what the president's role, or you could probably be standing up here teaching this as well, but also how to have a better club, how to have a surviving, thriving club. Does it sound like a good idea? Yeah. So Sally,
Absolutely.
awesome, great, thank you. I love interaction. So yes, unmute and say things when you want to. Sally, let me see if I really need, you know, I hate PowerPoint because it can be so boring. But we can do this first part and then I'll be turning it on and off. So Sally, you want to go ahead and share my PowerPoint and hopefully I won't lose my notes. Okay. So you want to play that? I think you have to, what is this? Play. Slideshow, there you go. From beginning, there we go. So in case you weren't sure, this is the President's Club's officer training. Next slide, please. So this is our training objective. We're going to go over the president's role so that you know what you need to be doing, the responsibilities, which is a little bit different from role, you'll understand in a minute, and resources, where you can get your resources. And by the way, I will be putting documents in the chat that will help you. Next slide, please. President's role. What is the president's role? The president's role is you are the chief executive officer of the club, responsible for fulfilling the mission of the club. Do we have next slide? It might have the mission on it. I had a good slide for that. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. So this is really good. Set the tone. This is one of your responsibilities. You are the figurehead. Everything you do, you're like the mom and the dad for the club. And everything you do is going to be mimicked by the other members. So if you show up, they're more likely to show up. If you show up with enthusiasm and you give speeches, your club members are more likely to have enthusiasm and give speeches. If you are missing in action, if you miss club meetings, if you don't give speeches, that is going to impact on your other club members. So you set the tone. You are the one that is the role model. Next point, please. Click. Sally. So fulfill the club mission. There it is. No, you can put it in. I kind of broke it up into 3 parts to help you remember. Notice that even Ed, who's been here forever, had to read the club mission. So I broke it up into 3 parts. You create a supportive and positive environment. What are you trying to do? Develop communication and leadership skills, which do what? Build confidence and personal growth. If you can remember those 3 things, you really understand what the club mission is. Create a supportive and positive learning environment, develop communication and leadership skills, self-confidence, and personal growth. Now, the next thing is your unique club mission. What is your unique club mission? You want to have a sense of what it is that distinguishes your club from all the other clubs out there, so that you know why people want to join your particular club. My club, Heart to Heart Toastmasters, we'll actually have 2 clubs, but Heart to Heart Toastmasters is a club mostly of entrepreneurs who wanted to make their message more heartfelt and authentic. That was our mission, because entrepreneurs often earn or gain their clients through speaking, through public speaking. And one of the problems they run into is they create an offer out there and it sounds like a car salesman commercial. So we really focused on how could we make our message more heartfelt. Heart to Heart Toastmasters. So what I would love you to do is put in the chat what you think sets your club apart. And Sally, you can stop sharing for the moment. So please, and some of you, if you want to just, at this point, are you raising your hands because you're a new president? Because if you aren't, if you are, you can take your hand down, because we're going to leave that for people asking questions. Does somebody want to volunteer what they think makes their club unique? Hey, where's Jesse? Jesse, are you here? You have a very unique club, and I want to hear what you have to say. You want to put your hand up, Jesse, and share what makes your club unique?
Sure, I can share. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, Jess, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we just started our club this year. I work for.
Wow.
Oh, wrong Jesse, sorry.
You know what, one at a time. Jess, go ahead, and then we'll get Jesse Lucas, okay?
What?
Go ahead, Jess Osborne.
Okay, sorry about that. I didn't realize we had more than one Jesse here.
I didn't either.
Yeah, so I just started a club this year. So we just became chartered in April, and I work for a large scale general contractor company, and we have, our role in the community as a company is really to build projects and build large scale projects. And so we have a leadership function as a company. And so, the club that we have is really pulling people together within our organization and just really focusing on the skills development for better communication and, leadership and all that, and using or working with Toastmasters as an organization to help deliver that in a consistent way. I mean, we constantly have lots of opportunity for leadership within our day-to-day, but the format and the way that Toastmasters does things was appealing to me. And so that's why I brought it to the organization and said, hey, let's put this in our company and have it be a tool for developing people in a more consistent format.
That's awesome, Jesse, thank you so much. And Jesse Lucas, can you share yours? Jesse has a club in Oakland, and I've been the club coach for the last year, and it is amazing. Jesse, can you share? Maybe not. Also, let's see, we've got some in the chat. We have speaker forum gives members the opportunity to give and receive feedback on longer keynote style. Another one, Michelle says, we are a fun, friendly, safe space for newcomers. Another one, we all have a story as a human and we develop our narrative through our club speeches and community. Here's James. We are a safe and inviting space for young professionals looking to increase their grammatical and diction skills for the purpose of public and client-facing roles. These are great. I hope you save your chat. These are awesome. So the other recent clubs that I ran.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Jesse, please go ahead.
Oh, I think our unique message is that our club is looking for minority folks who want to increase their communication and leadership skills in their community and specifically in their church and in their work.
Wow, thank you, Jesse. His club is a hybrid, but they are probably one of the first that really went back to meeting in person, and they have a very, very well-attended meeting in person club, which I'm very impressed by. So go ahead and keep on putting them in there because it's good to voice and identify what it is that makes your club unique. This is going to help you to sell your club to people when they come as guests because you know who you are. And then as president, this is who you need to show up as. You need to embody that. That needs to be fully a part of who you are when you show up as president. And one of the things that is really interesting about being president is that you have to show up at the club meetings pretty much every time. Stand in front of the room or set out as the main speaker to invite and welcome people in. Which reminds me, one of the things that I taught when I was teaching at Train the Trainer was, how do you welcome guests? This is probably one of their most important roles, is how do you welcome guests to your club meeting? Anybody want to give a demonstration of that? How do you welcome your guests? Yes, Ben. You need to unmute. There you go.
Yes, hello. Well, I usually, when I recognize a new face coming into the meeting, I usually immediately approach them and have a few words with them and welcome them and make them feel welcome and comfortable.
Awesome.
Prior to the meeting.
Prior to the meeting. And are you hybrid or in person?
We're hybrid.
Mm-hmm. So then you have a few minutes before the club meeting starts?
I usually try to show up early, yeah. So I have
Okay.
a few minutes to
That's
welcome.
awesome. Do you also welcome them officially once the meeting is started?
Yes, ma'am.
Great, excellent. And what kind of things do you ask your guest? What do you want to know about them in that very first interaction?
Prior to the official starting of the meeting?
No, at the official starting. This is really important.
Well, I guess it's the standard sort of question. What brought you here? How did you find us? And what do you hope to get out of your experience?
Exactly, exactly. Why do you need to know those pieces of information?
So we can sort of try to provide an environment that's beneficial.
Right, when you're actually having an enrollment conversation or your VP of membership is, they already have some information about the person. But you also want to know how they found you, right?
Yes.
Because one of our problems is, how do we get people to our club meetings? So we want to
Hello,
know,
Daniel,
how
this is
did you
Sally.
find us?
The sign-in sheet link is not
Sally, could you
working
mute,
in the
please?
president's room.
Thank you. All right, so that's great. So that's one of the main roles, or one of the main responsibilities of the president, is to introduce guests to the club so that they feel welcomed from the very beginning. Sometimes my club makes a mistake and does not really introduce the guests. No, always introduce the guests so they feel welcomed to the club. This was really important when we met in person, because otherwise they'd be standing around and know who they are. You actually want to introduce them to somebody they can talk to when it's in person. But if it's not in person, then it's really important to introduce them in those first moments. What else does the president do? Well, you have to read that mission, club mission. So it might be nice for you also, based on how you've identified your unique selling proposition, what makes your club different, to have that in your preamble, to talk not only about the Toastmasters mission, but your own club mission. And that will help to set you apart. So you preside over the meetings. What are some of the things that you do in the meeting besides introduce the club meeting and introduce the guests? What else do you do? Does anybody know?
This is Shaila. We usually start with a joke.
Okay, but that's not the president necessarily. That could be
No, you are
anybody,
right.
right?
Yes.
Okay. So there are some things that you actually have responsibilities for, and it's not necessarily at the beginning of the meeting, but you are responsible for it during some point in the meeting.
Yeah, we do club business updates.
Okay.
We have a scheduled slot in our agenda for any updates for club business.
Okay. Anybody thinking of anything else? And these are also super, super important. And in fact, they're so important that I'm going to give you scripts for them.
And just
One of
filling
them-
in gaps, filling in gaps if there's any stumbling points or things that need to be.
Oh, yes.
or
Oh,
whatever.
yes. And filling in the roles too. Make sure that all the roles are covered. But one of the most important things you do is you do new member inductions. Right? Would it be helpful for me to post a script for you? Any of you, would you like a script for doing new members inductions? Yes? Okay,
Sure.
I will do that when I don't know when I'm going to do that, but I will do it before we leave today. And the other thing is, you want to make sure that you have somebody to install your new officers. These are some of the first things that you're going to need to take care of. Not that you will install the new officers, but you need to get somebody to do that. Who do you get to install your officers? Well, one person would be the area director. In fact, it would be really good for your area director, because then your area director can act, hey, look at that. Yes, can get their first visit into your club. So reach out to your area director or your division director, or somebody you know that's been a former area director or division director, and make it formal so that people in your club really understand the value of being an officer in your club. We actually have a special gift or perk for being an officer in our club. And that is that we are allowed to give an extra long speech in which we can make an offer and practice our offer. So we are allowed to do that. But now with Pathways, all of our members now have longer speeches. So we worked that out, but they're not necessarily what we call headliners. What else? Oh, you are the Pathways, one of the Pathways managers. Does everybody know that? That means that if somebody fulfills a level, you can go ahead and affirm them. Now, usually that's the VPE, but if the VPE is out on vacation or out to lunch or whatever, you have that capability of approving somebody.
Michelle, this
Yes.
is Sharon.
Yes.
Don't
Sharon.
we also have voting? We have to vote at the conference.
Yes,
at our
thank you. You
in our
do. You
district
do.
conference.
You do have to vote at the conference. In fact, I probably should be going back to the slides again, but Sally's on the phone, so we won't go back to the slides yet. Inside the meeting. So inside the meeting, we already talked about that. You have to show up. You might want to bring scripts along if you know that you're going to do a new member induction, you want that script with you, you don't want to ad lib. You also want to recognize the accomplishments of your members. Wouldn't that be wonderful if the members' accomplishments were recognized by the president? Now, you don't have to do that at the beginning, you can do that at the end. But you want to recognize your members. That's going to increase the likelihood that people will want to fulfill their roles because they get that extra attention. Let's see, what else? There it is. Okay, so responsibilities, the club meeting, the executive committee, which we need to go over, and outside the club meeting. Next slide, please. So if you're meeting in person, you want to print the agenda. You want to print the agenda so that you can hand it out so everybody has an agenda. If you're on Zoom, then you can post it in the chat. Bring scripts, as I already mentioned. Identify special announcements. That might be at the end of the meeting, depends on how you structure your meeting. Next slide, please. Greet the guests and the members, absolutely. Connect guests with members if you're meeting in person. You could even do that on Zoom in saying, oh, you would want to speak to our VP of Education. She can give you more information. Find out how your members are doing. Well, that's pre-meeting upon arrival at the meeting before you start. And if you have like 15, 20 minutes before your meeting, that's a good time to check how other members are doing. And make sure all the roles are assigned. Next slide, please. During the meeting, you call the meeting to order, you read the mission. Remember to include your own club mission, introduce the guests, explain the meeting events. This is really important, although oftentimes we have the Toastmaster do that. So you have to decide who's taking that role. And what I mean by explain the meeting event is to talk about the 3 categories of events that happen in a meeting. Number 1, prepared speeches. Number 2, table topics, impromptu speeches. And number 3, evaluation. So make sure that your new members, especially if they've never been to Toastmasters, understand the structure of the meeting. Introduce the Toastmasters and induct new members. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Conduct the meeting portion, a business portion of the meeting. We usually do that at the end. How you structure your meeting can be really important in keeping guests around, especially if you're doing Zoom. If you're in person, it's not so easy for them to walk out without being noticed. But if they're on Zoom, you really want to structure your meeting so that you give them the juicy bits at the beginning. And then if they want to leave at the end, that's fine. Always ask your guests for their impression at the end of the meeting. This is really important. Why would it be important? Anybody have any ideas?
That's the way we'll know what guests are looking for and how we can improve, how the club can improve.
Right, yes. And whatever they say, then our VP of membership, when they reach out to that guest, can remember that. And that's a way to break the ice with that guest. And then you adjourn the meeting. Next slide, please.
I was going to say some of these roles that you're talking about are performed by other people in our club. For example, filling the roles for the meeting, we do that in advance, like a month in advance. The VP of E gets availability, fills out the schedule, and then leaves up to each person who's assigned that role. If they need to get a backup, they're responsible for it. In terms of getting the feedback from people who are visiting or new members, the Toastmaster for that particular meeting will introduce them to the group. We'll say that we'll check in at the end to get their impressions, and then we without pressure we say, if you'd like to participate in table topics where you talk on a topic for 1 to 2 minutes, please let us know. We're happy to do that. Or if you just want to sit this out and watch. So we give them an opportunity to actually engage in the meeting if they feel up to it.
Yes.
It's about 50-50. Well,
Yes.
actually about 70-30. People will actually take a shot at it, which we give them a lot of positive feedback. And anyway, so
Excellent.
that's how we do it.
Those are great, Todd. Thank you for identifying. In fact, it is good when you can separate those roles for different people and not take them all on yourself. And but I think it is helpful for the president to welcome the new guests, and even it could be the VP of membership that reaches out and asks them what their impressions are. But I feel like the president, it makes the guest feel special. The way in which you organize it sounds really, really helpful. We also do our club positions ahead of time, but I don't know about you, but every now and then people don't show up. So in the beginning, you have to reach around and ask people who's going to jump into roles. We often do that. We try and do that before we start the meeting, but that's the name of the game in a volunteer organization. Things are always changing.
What would be the purpose of doing that instead of necessarily the Toastmaster who's basically taking charge of the meeting, having them, try to get volunteers and cover various roles, since they're responsible for the overall sort of conduct of the meeting?
We try and get them filled before we actually start the meeting, but that's a really good idea. They could still take that responsibility on.
Mm-hmm.
That's great, Todd. Whoops, we missed the next thing. Back, where were we? We need the outside the club. You are in charge of the executive committee. Next one after the adjourned meeting. Next one is the next one after that. Because the next thing is outside the meeting. And the outside the meeting, one of your biggest roles is the executive committee. That is the committee of all your officers. And you want to meet at least once a month to check over what everybody is doing in their projects. Our current president reaches out to each one of the officers and asks what projects they're working on and how they're doing outside the executive committee meeting, so that when we go into the executive committee meeting, it's mostly reporting how we're doing rather than trying to problem solve, because otherwise those meetings can go on forever. We do meet at a different time from our regular club meetings. Anybody have anything to say about your executive committee meeting?
Yeah, Michelle, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, so my club is basically, as president, I'm trying to keep my club from being what Lance calls a hospice club.
Right.
We're right now below the 8 minimum. We thought we had 8, but one person didn't pay their dues, so we're at 7. And I've gotten help from this meeting in particular. The last TLI, Joe Amaro from Creating Communicators helped me out, and we're getting our club moving. Our trouble is getting membership. Now, when talking about your executive committee, as president, you lead the executive committee, but you need people who are leaders in the committee who are actually going to do the work.
Absolutely.
And a lot of problems that I have is that sometimes it seems like some of the work doesn't get done. So guess who does it?
Yes.
Me.
Yes.
And I'm getting to the point where I'm feeling burned out.
I hear you. I totally hear you.
So you need to support.
Yes. So one of the other things that we try to do, besides have the executive team, the various officers responsible for their jobs, is to help get them team members, to get people that help them so that they aren't doing it all alone too, because some of the roles are pretty daunting. It can take a lot of time. So of course, if you only have 6 or 7 members, that's really hard. The first responsibility you have right now is to get more members. And what I would highly recommend is that you get a club coach. And the reason why you want to get a club coach is not that you want to have somebody come in and tell you what to do, but a club coach usually has resources to bring other speakers in so that you can have very inspiring and exciting speakers all the time. That's what's going to bring people to your club. And also that you have an extra hand you actually have an extra person who will do some of the work, because a club coach can do some of the work, such as, you know, if you're a hybrid, being on the Zoom call and managing the Zoom call for you. Or one of the things I did when I was club coach is I actually helped enroll. That is, when I didn't see the VP of membership showing up and actually speaking to people who were guests, I would go and talk to those guests myself. And I would reach out to them, especially at an open house, and say, well, are you ready to sign up now?
Yeah,
I even had with me the membership form. So really making sure that your team members are prepared to move forward, and asking them, if they are having problems, what are their problems that are preventing them from fulfilling their role?
yeah.
Now, I have to say, one of the problems that we had in my club a year ago was that our president was out, missing in action. She'd gotten a new job. She was working all the time. She didn't show up to our officers' meetings. She didn't show up to our regular meetings. And that reverberated throughout the rest for the members. Also, her main theme was, let's avoid burnout, which meant everybody stopped doing their jobs. It was pretty terrible. So we have a really great new president, and she is really inspiring and exciting. And she is our very own club growth director, Linda Patton. So you can imagine that we have a good team now. Thank you for your input.
Michelle, I have a
Oh.
comment.
Yes, Sharon, please go ahead.
I put in the chat that Lakeview Club, we're experimenting with recruiting co-officers to kind of groom them for the next term.
Yes.
So people that we know are leaders.
Yes.
We want, and they might be new members and they're just afraid to step into that role right now. We'll ask them to, you know, what role appeals to them, and then we'll let them shadow us and maybe do little odds and ends for, you know, to assist us to kind of get the feel for that role, and then they can step in the next term.
Absolutely. Really,
Yeah, we're just
really good.
starting that.
Yes, we did that. We have done that, done the shadow officers a lot. And then we also have mentorship. That is that the former officer will mentor the new officer. And, you know, there's no way I could have been president of my club if I hadn't had a mentor who was keeping me on track. So it looks like Sally has posted where you can sign up and fill in your form. And if you don't have time to fill it in now, like me, I will just leave it up. And then when the club meeting, when this training is over, then I'll go and fill it out. So you can just leave it up there and then put it in. I think it won't be a problem. So let's see.
Michelle?
Yes.
One of the
So
things
those weren't the directions, Michelle. So I'm a little concerned about people not filling it out while we're in the training.
This is not for proving that you've gone to the training. I'm sorry. That's what I said.
This form that I just posted is to show that you were here, but they said that we had to fill it out while we were in the training. So I'm a little concerned about people not doing that.
But Sally, have you filled it out for yourself?
No, I haven't.
Do you need to?
Yes.
Okay. So what I would like you to do is we're going to tag team here. So you're going to change the slide that's up there for me, please, first. And then I will talk for a while and you can take a moment to go fill yours out. And then I'll actually have somebody else take over while I fill out my form. Because yes, I need to fill out the form for me as well.
Michelle?
Yes.
I'd like to say I don't have access to Google Drive. I've put it in the chat
Michelle?
about 5 times. Sorry, but I have no access to Google Drive on the laptop that I'm using for this Zoom training.
Okay,
so I
Deb,
really need someone to email
help
it
you.
to me.
Right,
Yes.
right. So at the end of the meeting, before you go back to the main room, we'll make sure that we get you filled out. So hang in here, don't leave right away. And Joe, what's your issue? Same issue or a different one?
I was addressing Larry's problem.
Go on.
And that has to do with a comment that our keynote speaker made, that we overlook a lot of times in distressed clubs. And I've encountered that with a number of clubs that I've worked with. And that's a comment that Lance made that we overlook a lot of times, is that just like in gardening, sometimes you need to prune the dead leaves. And we sometimes have placeholder officers that aren't doing their jobs, that have been there a long time, old-time Toastmasters that have gotten complacent and are just placeholding and keeping the club from going forward. And they're keeping others from progressing. And so he only said 1 or 2 lines about it, but it was very, very important. He said he just let them go and he replaced them. That's, to me, that was one of the most important things he said in his address, because that's very, very important. You bring in new blood. You get rid of those that are holding you back. You bring in new people. And that's what he did with his club. And that's what a lot of our clubs need to do. We've got
Joe, I
to
agree.
bring in new people.
I totally agree. And that is exactly what I did when I became president the first time. And my sense was that the ones that were old would leave by themselves, or they would upgrade. So it works. You don't have to actually throw anybody out unless they're really being disruptive. Most people will self-select out if it's not working for them anymore. But Joe, excellent, excellent point. And somebody said, I have a question about the president's position. Our club was told by our club coach that the president position must change annually. Amanda, if your club is struggling, I bet you can get a dispensation. Sure. When I became president, I was president for 2 years. We only met once a month. So it actually took me 2 years to learn the role. And some clubs, I believe that you can get I believe that you can talk to Toastmasters International and get an excuse if it works for your club. Because in some cases, you really don't have anybody else and you absolutely have to have a president. So I wouldn't worry about it. I would just check it out. And right now with Toastmasters losing so many clubs, they're probably going to allow you to do that. That's my guess. Here's another thing about the outside club meeting: correspondence with the world headquarters. Well, basically they correspond to you, and then you have to let your club members and your committee know what the world headquarters is sending to you. District correspondence, the same thing. You often get from your area director important information from the DECA meeting. There's a district meeting that happens every month that they make important decisions and they set out priorities and they set out like how you're going to earn district bucks and what do you need to do. Let's see, oversee and manage club issues. This is super important. And that is what happens when you have a disruptive member of your club. When we do new membership induction, we always vote our members in. So if you need to invite somebody to leave, you can actually vote them out if that's necessary. Now, hopefully you will never have to do that. The worst thing I ever had to deal with was I had a club member who would come in late, and we were meeting in person back then, and she would go to the food counter, which when we were already meeting, and start collecting food. And rather than confront her directly, the former president said to me, send out a message to everyone about the appropriate way of and courtesy in a club meeting. And that was the way in which I handled it. And it really went away without having to confront her directly and to embarrass her. If they keep on doing it, then this does fall on you to have to take direct action. One time I had a club member who gave a really, really difficult evaluation. In other words, it was all negative and not positive. And I pulled her aside at the end of the meeting and talked to her and helped her to realize that there actually were positives that she could say. For example, anybody who gets up and speaks for the first time should get really great kudos for doing that. And she learned from that, and she actually is a great evaluator now. But that was one of the things that fell upon me as president, or a VP of E would also do the same thing, should step up. But back in those days, I was kind of like the chief person doing, multiple tasks. Can we have the next slide, Sally? So these are some of the club issues. Go ahead and click. Disruptive members, bad evaluations, member conflicts, officer relations, and jurisdictions. Okay, so these are some of the things that you have to deal with. Member conflicts. Has anybody had any member conflicts in their club? So does anybody want to share what you did and how you handled it?
This is Shaila. I would like to share something.
Please.
Yeah. I had one conflict with our president. He thought I was ignoring him when I was a Toastmaster. He thought that I'm not asking him to speak, but we have a hybrid meeting, and sometimes it's hard to see when somebody is on Zoom. I didn't see him, and that's the reason I asked our guest to introduce themselves. And he thought it was the president's responsibility to ask ask guests to introduce themselves. So I did send him a text message saying, I'm sorry, my intention was not that. And if I come across as rude and disrespectful, I apologize. And after that, I didn't hear back from him.
Did he continue to come?
Yes, he did.
Sounds like you solved it. Excellent. So yes, sometimes you have to apologize, because you never want to have a person feel slighted. And it's a tricky balance to be able, especially on Zoom, to pay attention, especially if you have a lot of people in there, to notice everybody. Anybody else want to share, or we're running out of time? So yes, Steve, please.
I'm not going to share the specific issue we had, but I'm going to just talk about conflict in general.
Okay.
I'm one of those people that tries to avoid conflict. I just do. Sometimes I feel like it's easier, but I would suggest, as somebody that's been around the block a little bit in Toastmasters, that if a conflict comes up, you address it right away rather than letting it get worse. Sometimes you think it's going to go away, and if you address it right away, it's a lot easier. And I went on YouTube one time and I put in Toastmasters conflict resolution, and a couple of good videos came up on how clubs handled it. And it really helped me out a lot. So there's a lot of resources out there that can help you if something develops.
Thank you so much, Steve. You also gave me a chance to at least put one of the first documents that I have available.
Glad I could help.
Yeah, no, please, anybody else want to talk? I have a few more I need to put in. Joe, do you have something to share?
Just real quick, we had an older member in one of our clubs that was making the women uncomfortable in the club by making certain types of comments, and we tried talking to him and taking him aside, and some of the comments he made during the club, and it was a morning club professional. He wouldn't stop, so he was brought up on charges within the club.
Wow.
He was eventually just voted out of the club.
That's why you always have to remember to vote your club members in, so that you can vote them out if you need to. Lee, do you have something to share?
Along Joe's lines, I once had a member who was just making some disruptive behavior in general, and the person was talked to about it maybe 2 or perhaps 3 times. And rather than vote the person out of the club, what I did was I got with my area director and I reviewed Toastmasters behavioral policies, and I suspended the individual for a month and informed them why. And from there, the person elected not to return. So
yeah. So you never had to vote them out, but you did suspend them.
Right.
So that sounds like a really good solution. And it looks like Beth has something to share with us. Awesome.
We've had so much great content, Michelle. I just wanted to remind everyone about the dashboard. I don't think you've had a chance to talk about the dashboard because I know you have so much other stuff. And
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh.
dashboard
And I
list.
completely forgot to bring the most important thing, which is distinguished club, right? This is what you all want to be working towards from the very beginning. Sally, can you change the officers' relations and jurisdiction? Have you ever had officers taking over somebody else's jurisdiction and there being conflicts around that? Has that ever happened? No. Well, it's sometimes when you have some very overly accomplished leaders, they can sometimes
5 minutes, Michelle,
Yes,
5
okay.
minutes.
So they can sometimes do that. Sally, would you move the slide forward, please? Okay, so distinguished club goals, and that's on the console. Does everybody know where to find the distinguished club information on Toastmasters International to know what you're doing? No, yes?
No, I don't.
Okay. Beth, can you put the link in, a link in for people to see where that is? And while I have to go through the rest of this. So one of the things is that you want to work towards every year is trying to become a distinguished club. This helps make your club have something to work towards, like Lance talked about. But one of the ways in which you do that is to fill out a club success plan. And every year, District 57 sends out a mini club success plan, thank goodness, because the long club success plan, which I had to do the first time, took me 4 hours. The dashboard is automatically updated.
Lola, behave.
Would you please mute whoever that was, Brooke? Another thing you might want to do is encourage your club to do moments of truth. That will help you to identify where you need to upgrade. And then one of the first things you have to take care of is membership renewal. And that's a big task for just one person, which is either the treasurer or the VP of membership, usually the treasurer. So we used to divide that up. We would have the different officers go ahead and make calls to a select number of the members to make sure they renew. And remember, this year, you want your members to renew by July, because they'll save like, what is it, 15 bucks, 20 bucks? Because they're raising the rate. So get them to sign up in July to save their money. And then the other thing you want to talk about is open houses, which is one of the ways in which we get new members. Would you change the slide, please? You want to create a club budget? Ideally, the club votes on your budget, and the budget has changed a lot since we've gone online. Hopefully your treasurer will get some information on how to do club budgets. Incentives for inviting guests, which is a very good way of getting your members to be more proactive. Contest planning, really important. That makes your club vital and keeps your members engaged. And outside speaking opportunities. Our club only meets twice a month. It used to meet only once a month. We could not get through our pathways or our educational goals without speaking outside the club. And where do you get that? One of those places is the Speakers Bureau. So look into how it is that your members can become, can join the Speakers Bureau. And the other thing is to reach out to clubs that, to the division directors and find out what their needs are for target speakers. Next slide, please. So you need to participate in the area council. Yeah, you thought it was just the executive, but as a vice president or VPE, you're also part of the area council, which is made up of 4 to 5 clubs. And this is an opportunity to find out what's going on the district level. You're also supposed to vote at the annual district business meeting and the annual international business meeting. And so if you know the area council, this is a place to get people's ideas about who they're or what they're going to vote at the business meeting, because it's really hard. I mean, they hand out stuff to you and you have no idea what's going on. So if you need help, this is one of the ways, is to take advantage of that area council to get advice on what are the important issues, both at the district level and maybe even at the international level. Next slide, please. Boy, you didn't realize there was so much. Would you like a PDF copy of this slide deck? Would that be helpful to you? Yes, maybe? Okay.
Can I add something on the voting?
Yes, please.
This is really important. So the district voting is important because, you know, that's how Sally became program quality director this year, and Ed became district director, and Linda became club growth director. But the international is a big deal too, and that happens in August. It's going to take place in the Bahamas, but you don't have to be there. The president and the secretary votes on who the international directors are and who will be the people that are on track to be international president in a few years. So that's really important. And the presidents and secretaries are responsible for doing that. So we'll all get emails from Toastmasters International, and we can either vote electronically at the business meeting, we can watch it on Zoom, or if possible, we can go to the international convention. But we have a person from our district, George Marshall, who's running for international director. So I'm not telling you how to vote, but I'm just saying, be aware that you have that role to vote at the international convention.
Thank you, Steve. That was really important for us for you to know as the president that you have a role and you make a difference. And by the way, it used to be that when the Toastmasters International was going to raise their rates, they had to get the approval of all the membership. And that got changed at the international business meeting a few years before I was president, because I wouldn't have voted for that, believe me. I would have wanted us as members to still have a say in that. We had no say in that increase, and I don't know how you feel about it. Maybe it's fine, maybe it's not fine. But we want to stay alert because things can change and we have a right to have our opinion heard. Now, I have a bunch of documents in the chat. Please make sure that you click on that you want to save it. And you just have those 3 little buttons at the bottom, say save chat, and you will get all, well, I think you actually have to download the documents ahead of time. So go ahead and download the documents. And I have one more thing that I don't have time to go over, and that's the 30, 60, 90-day plan. And here's President's Resources. While you're looking at that, I'm going to put one more thing in here, whoops, which is the sample 30, 60, 90-day plan that I use that will be helpful to you. I also gave you a blank one, which is a PowerPoint. So if you don't have PowerPoint, it's not going to help you out a lot. But I've sent out one of my 30, 60, 90, and it really helps you to see what is coming up and what's important. We have to end because we run out of time. Are there any last comments or, whoops?
Yeah, Michelle, if you don't mind, as I noted before, my club is a distressed club. And if there are any other distressed, clubs that are here, whose presidents are here, that feeling they're having the same kind of problems my club's having and trying to stay alive, I wouldn't mind if they reached out to me.
Yes, Larry, this is Shaila. Our club is also distressed, so we can connect.
Okay, yeah, I'll put my email.
You know what
address
would
in
be
the
really
chat.
helpful is if you all put your email in the chat.
Okay.
And I'll put mine in so that if you want any of the documents and you didn't have time to download them, I will send them to you. And if there are people that you wanted to connect with, then, you know, maybe you'll also have their names and emails. So I'm going to put mine.
In July, based on this conversation, we're going to be having a meeting of distress clubs of interest that everyone can come together and make those connections and talk about it. So that'll be coming up in July.
And I would just like to remind everyone to save the chat before we get off the.
Absolutely. And if you missed some of the documents.
Not everybody knows how to do that though, so can you just tell them?
Sally, could you do that?
I'm saving the chat. The way you do that is you open up your chat. Down at the bottom, you see 3 little dots. You click on that. It says Save Chat. After you click on the Save Chat, you'll see a little thing that says Show in Folder. You click on that so that you know where you saved it, and then you have it.
Okay. And also, if do we get an evaluation of our training, Sally?
I haven't seen that, but
okay. Well, if you
I'll let
have any
know.
comments to make about the training today, whether or not it was helpful to you, that would be lovely to have you put it in there as well. Thank you all. This was I did send you put it in the chat, a PDF version of the slides, so you will have the president's resources there. I have put in there, I believe, the installation script, the new membership script, the 30/60/90 form, and if you have PowerPoint, and the PDF version that I have, and let's see what else, and the club slide, the president's slides. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for those of you who contributed today and shared your experience. I'm sure that it has been valuable to some of the people here in the group today. And those of you who need help.
I put in the link to get back to the main meeting.
Okay, thank you. You've got the link to the main meeting. Those of you who need to have your form filled out, please stay here and Sally and I will help you to do that. The rest of you are dismissed.
I don't see the link to the main meeting. Is that in chat?
Yeah, I put it in chat. Maybe it's too far up the line now. Let me see if I can get it back in chat again.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So
Just a minute.
Here, I'm putting it in right now too. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Michelle.
Yes, Jesse, do you need help
Michelle?
getting
This is
your
Jesse,
form
yeah.
filled out? Jesse, do you need help getting your
could you do
attendance?
that for me? Because I can't see this.
Yes, I understand. I will
Yes.
do that. If I can find, can you put the link in for the attendance form again, Sally? Is that possible? Because we
It
need
is
to do.
possible. It'll take me a minute to get back there.
Yeah, I don't think
find
they gave that to me, so I need.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I have to go search it out in the emails again.
One quick question I have, if I could ask, just is, are we going to have ability to get the videos from all the other officer trainings as well? It's something I was hoping to be able to share with my officer team, their individual roles, since I'm obviously not able to go to all of them.
Yes. Hopefully, I begged all of the people to record, and we'll have those available and posted.
I've got it, Sally. I've got it.
Oh,
I'm putting it in.
Thank you, because I wasn't finding it.
So do I click on leave to go to the main screen?
Yes, and then you see the link in there. Make sure that you keep that link, because that's how you're going to get back to the main meeting.
Got it. Thank you.
And then underneath that is the form for filling out. And Jesse, I'm going to go ahead and start filling out the form for you.
You're very kind.
let's see, switch account. I'm going to
Very
put your email. You need to give me your email. I know I should have it, right? But
JESSE.70 at yahoo.com.
JESSE.7 JESSE.0
No,
at?
no. JESSE.70 at
Yes.
yahoo.com.
Okay.
Did you get it right?
I got that. Yes. JESSE.70 at yahoo.com.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do others of you need help, or do you
Yeah,
just
I
need to
think
click
there was
to go back to
somebody
the
else
main
who
room?
needed help. Because she asked earlier, because she can't get the Google Doc. Which club? Is that just ARPB, Jesse?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And we're done. You can leave now.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. All right, who else needs help?
I do, please. I just am trying to figure out where the link, all the things that you said that you put in the chat for the links.
You can just get my email and I will send them to you directly.
Okay, and
Do you see my email? Grief and loss guide at gmail.com.
Grief?
Grief and loss, and is spelled out.
Okay, so we're like really, really late here and they're
I know,
already
I know,
doing
but you know
the-
what? These people have got to get their credit. So if you need to
Right.
leave, but if you leave, you'll close the thing. So Rebecca, you need me to fill out your attendance? No.
No,
you're
no,
good.
no, no, thank you. I was just trying to find all the stuff you said were downloaded that I can't seem to find, but I'll just email you directly.
Okay. Anybody else need attendance filled out for them? Otherwise, Sally and I are leaving.
Okay, and I just made you co-host so that I can leave.
Okay, Sally.
Sally, I'll see you Thursday or Wednesday.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you
Indeed.
so much,
Thank
Sally.
you, Rebecca, for being here.
Thank you, Sally. You were great. Anybody need help getting their attendance form filled out? Are you all done? Michelle, Bob, did we get a screenshot of these people at all?
No, we didn't. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
It was too much, wasn't it?
It was too much.
And
Not
that was-
being able to get that link on just, yeah, drove me crazy. And we're still recording and I can't find that either.
Oh, to
So
stop
here's
the
more.
recording?
Stop recording. Here we go.
Okay.
Okay.